guys, it's Michelle from Cozyegg. This is episode 101, and today is Wednesday, January 27th, 2021. So, Tut and I are welcoming you to a brand new year. And now we're in episode 101, so it seems like the perfect place to start. It has been a little over a month since I recorded. I think my last video was December 21st, so it's been a little while. I got a new computer, and so that is forcing me to change the software that I use to edit my videos. So I've been a little hesitant to record because I'm not for sure that I can edit afterwards. So we'll just see how this goes. Hopefully what you will see is a lovely edited video and you would be none the wiser that there was anything different. If not, now you know why. So, if you are new, a new viewer, thanks for joining me. And if you are returning, thanks for coming back. I'm probably just going to talk a little bit about kind of what's been going on in the past month, and then we'll get into the stitching and all that other good stuff. So, new computer. So that took me a little while to like get all my stuff kind of organized and, you know, cleaned up, etc. And then of course, once you get the new computer, then, you know, there's a little bit of like burn-in period where you have to figure out how things work now and all that good stuff. So, but my computer is now much faster. It has a lot more storage space, and that was the issue that I was constantly running into with trying to do my videos was editing and uploading was super slow. It wasn't really uploading, it was saving them once I edited. Was super slow, and I was constantly getting these error messages saying, you're almost out of space, so sorry about you. So I was constantly having to sort of shift things around. But now I have tons more space. I have tons more processing power, which I'm super excited about. So, you know, it's kind of like in my old car, I couldn't, you know, drive on the highway and have the AC on. It was one or the other. So it makes you appreciate it when you don't have to deal with that. Let's see, what else has been going on? So obviously we had the holidays. So I have this app called the Moon app that shows you what phase of the moon is in, etc. But it also will randomly send you these little notifications that typically don't mean anything or have anything to do with anything. But so as I'm rambling, the notification just popped up that said, everyone's just like, get to the point. Okay, noted. So we had the holidays. It was quiet. I had 2 weeks off from work, which was lovely. I didn't get near the things done that I really wanted to get done while I was on my vacation, but I got to do some stitching. I got to do a ton of reading. So that was really kind of the most important thing. Eric and I, you know, spent time together where we weren't, you know, on back-to-back conference calls, etc., which was really nice. And we could just sort of relax and enjoy each other's company. So, of course, start of the year, and we're right back into the wild and woolly, work schedule, etc. But it was really nice to have that break. I needed it for sure. So, and along with the new year, I thought I would talk about, I've talked before about goals and things like that, and I will touch on that a little bit. But one of the things that I try to do is to have a word of the year, which a lot of people do, that kind of puts my intention for the year into perspective. And so my word of the year last year was self. And the reason that I chose that was because I was really working hard on self-care and trying to change some of my daily habits, etc. The pandemic kind of threw a wrench in that a little bit. So there was a good portion of the year where I felt like I was just sort of day-to-daying it and not paying as much attention to the things that I had initially set out to do. But overall, I think that it was a good choice for a good choice for last year. And so this year, the word that I chose for 2021 is open. And the reason that I chose that is because after doing, a lot of journaling and soul searching, etc., throughout last year, one of the things that I started thinking about was, one of my defense mechanisms is being very closed off. I am just innately a rather private person. It may not seem like that because I do share a lot of my thoughts and stuff that's going on and whatever, but there is a whole lot that I keep to myself. And part of that is, not wanting to be vulnerable and allowing myself to, in some cases, give someone too much ammunition, so to speak. So one of the things that I want to work on this year is allowing myself to be a little more open emotionally, a little more open in my relationships, which of course means being a little more vulnerable, trusting, etc. So that's one of the things that I want to work on. The other piece to that is really has to do with allowing and not fighting against things, sort of leaning in. So that's one of the other pieces, that's important to me. And also being open to guidance and listening to myself and my intuition. And so sometimes I tend to kind of fight that. Like, I know what my gut is telling me, and I don't always listen. So that's my word of the year. That's what I'm planning on focusing on this year. That's my intention. So I'd love to hear if you have a word of the year, or if you have something, that you're putting forth as an intention for 2021. I would love to hear it. So, yeah. So that's my word for the year. I did sit down and I put together some goals. I've kind of felt like I'm behind this year. I don't think I am, but I've just sort of had that feeling all month of I should have already nailed down these things, and I should have already figured out my goals, and I should have already, you know, X, Y, and Z. But I'm trying to allow things to happen at the pace that they happen. So, and I had to be in the right emotional space and the right mental space to be open to receiving what I needed to hear. So, all in good time, right? And if you want to set goals on July 21st instead of January 1st, do it. There is nothing that says it has to be January 1st. There's nothing magical about that date. So, but I have my goals. I have my word of the year. I have a new bullet journal that I have set up, and mostly have it all put together. Some of it is a little more put together than others, but whatever, right? So, so that's kind of what I've been working on. And I will talk a little bit more about my crafting goals, etc., when I kind of get into that. But one of the other pieces that I'm looking at this year is really starting to look at losing weight. So I've set a goal for myself, an initial goal of 30 pounds, and I have a date that I would like to hit that by. So I've broken it up into doable, small steps, and I'm starting to make, a few changes here and there. But in looking at being open and being vulnerable and being authentic, one of the things that I, of course, am forced to look at is, everything that kind of has led to weight gain and keeping that weight on, etc. And so I'm now starting to kind of peel those layers back emotionally and look at them. And it has just come to a place where it's like, okay, we're gonna have to just deal with this. So I appreciate any positive thoughts along those lines. So the other thing that has been going on is Tut has been having some health issues. He just in the past couple of weeks, we had to take him up to the vet. Eric took him because we had a suspicion that he had some sort of a bladder infection or a urinary tract infection. And so we took him to the vet. They ran a bunch of tests and looked at him and believed that it was more, it appeared to be more inflammation than infection, but they went ahead and gave him some antibiotics as well as some pain meds to make him a little more comfortable. And he is doing so much better. He goes back to the vet, I think, in about another week. The pain meds, however, he is apparently one that has a reaction to pain medication that is opposite of what you would expect, and so it makes him super agitated and he can't rest. And so, the first several days when we were giving him the pain meds twice a day, he was just up and he was pacing the house and he couldn't relax, and he was just like it almost seemed like he was overstimulated because he was just, he was jumpy and he was just super agitated. And my anxiety also spiked up over the weekend. And I think part of it was worry about Tut, and part of it I think was picking up on his agitation, which of course then made me agitated. And I was also, the book that I was reading had some heavy stuff in it that I think was bringing that up for me. So, but he is doing better, and hopefully when we go back to the vet, he will have a clean bill of health, and we won't have to give him any more pain meds. We have been sort of slowly knocking them down, the amount that we give him, in the hopes that it would sort of lessen that reaction that he was having to it. We did talk to the vet about it, but who knew? So, okay. So let's get to it. I thought I would show you what I have been working on since the last time we talked, and assuming that I was able to actually do some video editing, my intention is to show kind of the pieces that I finished last year at the beginning of this video, so hopefully you saw that. If not, you can go back and watch my videos from last year and you'll see what I finished. So, fingers crossed. So, what did I work on? So, I think I mentioned last time that I wanted to do some Christmas stitching, and I did. I decided to get out my Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery Christmas Celebration Sampler, and that's what it looks like in glorious black and white. And aside from the fact that I have used some color for the gray borders, that I do not know what gray I used, and nothing that I have tried matches it. So I still have to figure that out. But aside from that, I did enjoy working on this. And so here's where I got to. So I think this is 32 count. And this is primarily DMC. It has one over dyed, which is this sort of, it's white, but it's got little hints of blue and pink in it. And I think it's called a snowflake. So I finished up this block. I didn't have a ton left, but I finished this block up, and then I dropped down and stitched the eye block completely. And I think they really turned out pretty cute. My little carolers and my little ice skater. Pretty cute. And kudos to Frosted Pumpkin for some diversity. Always appreciate that. So I worked on that. Once I got that block done, I was kind of like, okay, I'm good. And so then the last, I guess, week or so of the year, I decided to go back to Hannah Tingy and work on her. And I was really trying to get block one, page one finished, which I did not quite do. But that's okay. And as an update, I did manage to get the red floss away label that was stuck to the inside of my vinyl here. I did manage to get that off, so lesson learned. Okay, so Hannah Tingy by the Scarlet House. This is what she looks like. And this is a sampler that I started with Christy from Crosshatch Quilts, and several other people started her as well. She's been in my stash for a million years, I think since she was released in 2011. So it seemed like it was time to start her. So we started this on Thanksgiving Day, or I started her on Thanksgiving Day. And let me show you where I'm at. And I'm stitching her on 40 count buttercream by Lakeside. And I'm stitching her with the called for NPIs. And here's where I'm at. So I've worked on that over one verse, and I worked on my border. You can see I've got kind of that first color of those strawberries in there. I just need to go back and do the second color. I worked a whole lot on this band. I think I stitched it and ripped it out and stitched it and ripped it out and stitched it and ripped it out multiple times because I kept making mistakes. But, and you can see there's red and green in here, and then there are, I think, eyelets that go in these 4 spots and in these 2 spots here too. And I figured I would just do all of those at once. But that's where I'm at. I love this piece so much. And so, as part of my 2021 plans, I decided to choose 4 pieces that I wanted to kind of focus on this year. Ideally, I'd love to get all 4 of them done, but I'm really just going to focus on these 4 samplers. And I figured 4 because it's sort of 1 a quarter. That seemed like a good number, as opposed to usually when I'm like, I'm going to finish 25 samplers this year. That never works out. So, Hannah Tingy is one of the 4 because I would really like to spend some more time with her. I love her. I think it's just a beautiful sampler. I'm so happy with the silks and the fabric. Just thrilled with it. So I can't wait to get back to working on her because she's a beauty. Just a beauty. So Hannah, we'll call her number 1, sampler number 1. So I worked on her from the time I finished my Christmas celebration block until like through the 31st. And so that's what I got done. And then on January 1st, I had a new start. And my new start is, and this is a beautiful bag that Sylvia made me for Valentine's Day. And she showed this on her Flosstube and was like, I made this for Michelle, but the back of it, the fabric is upside down. And she's like, so I'm just not gonna send it to her. And I was like, dude, put it in the mail because I love it. It's linen. It's so pretty. It just has a really nice feel to it. I love it. So I decided that this that I would use this for my New Year's shirt. And I just want to show you really quick. I'm going to take all my crap out of here. But she also, here's the inside of it. And she quilted this little heart in here, which I just love. So now I can put all my crap back in. Okay, so I started the sampler that I charted last year for Tudor Rose Sampler Guild. That was part of our 20th anniversary celebration. And I'm looking for the cover. So, this is Sarah Ann Banton, 1833. This is a bad print off on my printer, but it's better than a black and white picture, right? Am I right? This antique sampler belongs to one of our members, and she graciously let me reproduce this for the guild. And so I revealed it at our December meeting and gave it out to the members, and I did a reproduction and an adaptation. So I am stitching the reproduction, and I am stitching it in the Vera Soie d'Alger. I went through and I put all of my DMC in here so that I could double check color matches. So that's why I've got DMC and a Vera Soie in there. And so I started her on the 1st, and Sarah and I had a little bit of a disagreement. I had to do some massive ripping out repeatedly, but we finally got on the same page. We came to an understanding, and it's all good now. So I am stitching this on 40 count weeks putty because the original, the fabric to me looked like it had a little bit of a greenish cast to it, and I wanted to preserve that stitching the reproduction. So I chose weeks putty. It's not quite that green. That's looking super green. It's not quite that green, but you can go look at some photos on my Instagram to see kind of what the actual color is. But I wanted, a fabric that was warm, that kind of warm neutral with a little bit of a green cast to it, which this has. So I'm quite pleased with my fabric. I was a little iffy about it because having, just ordering it and not knowing exactly what the color was going to look like and exactly how it was going to look with my threads, I was a little, but I'm super happy with it. So I have been working on this primarily and just loving it so far. So the verse, the capital letters here are over 2, but everything else is over 1. And, oh, that's more accurate. So it's kind of a warm gray-green kind of color. Yeah. So I love the border so much. I just love all the different flowers. I love these little rosebuds in the corners, the striped face, the little bees. Just love it. And I'm just now starting, there's a carnation band that goes across here, which I just started last night. So really loving it. So that is what I have primarily been working on since the first of the year. I did, and so this is, Sarah is my second of the 4 that I'm going to focus on this year. My intention is to get Sarah finished so that I can photograph her for releasing the reproduction in December to the public. So that's my plan. So even if nothing else gets done, Sarah will get done. I did take a small break from Sarah to work on Blacked Sky for Dark October stitching. Sorry, Dark 13 stitching. What month are we in? So this is Blacked Sky by the Primitive Needle. This is out of print, unfortunately. And I am basically starting on this block right here. So these 4 are complete. And the first thing I did was, when I picked it up, I went up here and I finished this top border because I only had like half of it stitched. So I finished out that top border and then I dropped down here to start this block. And so I just have these 2 blocks and then the bottom border, and that's it. So I think I mentioned last year that Blacked Sky, I am planning on, this will be my Dark 13 focus piece until it's finished. So here is how it's looking, and I just love it. This is on 40 Count Vintage Pear by Lakeside, which is the called for. And it also has a greenish cast to it. And I am stitching it with the called for Pure Palette Silks. And I just love how it looks. I'm really happy with it. And obviously that border's way up here, so it's not super exciting though. This is the block that I finished, I think, during Dark October stitching, and I think that was the last time that I worked on this, was during Dark October stitching. Maybe. I could be wrong, but it felt good to pick it back up again and do some work on it. So I worked on this maybe about a week and then went back to Sarah. So always happy to work on this piece. This is my favorite piece. Here are the Pure Palette Silks. And then there's there's 2 silken colors in here as well. And one of the threads I did actually replace with a soie d'Alger because my skein had a whole lot of white spots in it where it looked like it didn't completely take the dye, which you couldn't tell in the skein, but once you pulled an individual thread, it was really noticeable. So I just replaced that color with an Avera soie, particularly on that block that has all the letters. It was too difficult to read it, this one. It was too difficult to read it with those white spots in there, so that got replaced. And so Blacked Sky is my 3rd sampler that I'm going to focus on this year. And like I said, it's going to be my Dark 13 stitching focus each month. It'll get some love, probably about a week, and I think I should be able to easily finish that this year. And then the fourth sampler that I chose to focus on this year, I actually have not worked on at all this year so far, but that's okay. It will have its time. And so that is His Eye is on the Sparrow. And I am stitching this on a 48 count. The name just flew right out of my head. It's a 48 count something. Gondor linen. That Sylvia overdyed. Or dyed. Or both. And I'm stitching it with the called for colors. But because it's on 48 count over 2, 1/2, my colors are super saturated because it's on a 48 count. So, and that's part of what I love about it. So here's where I'm at. Please ignore the wrinkles. So I have the top band, I guess, finished. And I sort of skipped over the verse because I'm going to change that. And then I have been working over here on this side. So I worked on this kind of like gangbusters at the beginning of 2020 up until like July, and then I just got completely burnt out. And so I picked it back up at the end of last year and worked on it some. And I was working over here in this area. So I made some good progress. I love that bird, that big blue bird. And I am working down, this is basically the bottom corner right here. So I've got that flower started and I just love it. Just love it. So that's where I'm at. And I'm really, really happy with how it looks. I did change my house to red. And I love how that looks. So I think Jen Quirks and Stitches changed hers to red after she saw mine. And I, of course, saw someone else's as well. So, yeah, so that is His Eyes on the Sparrow, and that is my fourth sampler that I plan to focus on this year. And like I said, it hasn't gotten any love this year because I've just been kind of working on Sarah primarily. And I'm not really doing any sort of rotation. I just kind of figured I'm going to work on Sarah until I don't want to work on Sarah anymore and I need a break. So I'm just kind of playing it by ear. Of course, I'll do dark 13 stitching and we'll just kind of see how it goes. So, but I'm sure that Sparrow will get some more love soon. I'm sure that Hannah Tingy will get some more love soon. But those are pretty much what I am going to focus on this year. And then we'll see where the wind takes me. So, while we're talking a little bit about dark 13 stitching, I wanted to share something with you. So you may remember that one of the things that I was doing last year was I was kind of working on a couple of pieces that I had started during Dark October stitching, and I was using those as my focus pieces for dark 13 stitching and just sort of continuing to pick those up until they were done. And one of the pieces that I finished was Jinx by Raise the Roof. And I finished it. I was in love with it, but I had no clue how to finish it. I didn't think that I wanted it framed, but I couldn't really think of what else to do with it. And my sweet friend Cynthia, Stitching in the Light, who at the moment is down with COVID, and it's hit her pretty hard. So just sending lots of love to you, Cynthia, and I hope you're better soon. So anyway, so Cynthia shot me a note and said, I would love to finish your Jinx for you. And so I sent it to her and said, work your magic. And oh my gosh, she totally did. So she brought this by a little while ago, and I just have to show it to you because it's amazing. So she made a drum out of it, and I absolutely love it. So let me show you the whole piece there so you can see it. She said that this is her first drum that she's ever made, which is amazing because it is perfect. Perfect. So it has black fabric on the bottom and black fabric on the top. She put this beautiful button in the top, and I love the two pins that match the moon. This the ribbon up here is sari silk that she dyed herself, which I just love. It's coming across a little more bright than it is. It's much more muted, but I just love the kind of ombre look to it. And then she also made this little strawberry to go with it as well, which I just love. I just love. Look at that. So it's absolutely perfect. I just love it, and I think it was the perfect way to finish this piece. So thank you so much, Cynthia. I just can't even. It's beautiful. And I have it up on top of my bookcase so that nobody can get to it and eat it. And I can see it every day, and I just love it. Absolutely love it. So I hope you're better soon, Cynthia. And thank you again for doing this. It's beautiful. So I had to share that with you. And I had one other thing that I started thinking about the other day. And so this kind of goes into plans. I mean, I kind of talked about what I was going to work on these pieces. Black and Sky will be for the 13th. But I started thinking about, one of the things I did at the beginning of the year was I did like a massive organizing cleanup of my craft closet because, yeah, I had a quilt that I made in September, and like there were still like pieces of fabric that were just sort of thrown in the closet, and quilt batting, and I stitched that ornament and for Marlene, and there was finishing stuff that was just sort of everywhere. And so I did a massive clean out of my closet. And while I was doing that, I found a whole bunch of things that need to be FFO'd, like badly. And two of the things that I found are my Sabbat pieces by the Primitive Hair that I stitched last year. And so here's the one that is finished. So this is Yule, and I stitched this, I don't remember when, maybe in 2019, and finished it with this flannel on the back that I just love. So this is the one that I have finished. And it's sad because it just has to live out all year because I don't have anything to swap it out with. So last year, after the pandemic started and we were in lockdown, I was having a hard time concentrating and I couldn't really stitch on anything big. So I picked up a couple of little pieces to stitch on, and one of the pieces that I stitched was in bulk, which is in that series, the Sabbat series by Primitive Hair. And so I stitched this one, and I stitched it like right after I read The Bear and the Nightingale. And so the snowdrops really kind of fit in perfectly. And my sheep is fuzzy. I used the Whisper thread on him. Maybe you can see that. So in bulk is coming up on February 2nd. So I thought I should probably get this out and finish it. So I went through my finishing bucket and I found some fabric that I bought from Joann's a million years ago that I thought would be perfect with it. So I'm going to back it with that, and I just need to sew it up, stuff it. And then the other piece that I stitched, I think like right after I finished that one, was this one, which is a Astara. And so this is March 21st, which is basically the spring equinox. And I just love it on this green fabric. This is one of those Silk Weaver fabric of the months that I got a million years ago and didn't know what to do with. And this just seemed like the perfect thing. And I found this fabric that I think ties in with these little green bits here. So now I've got my fabric. I just need to cut it and sew it. So I have been meaning to sew because I have a gift that I need to finish also. I'm meaning to sew for like 3 weeks now and it hasn't happened. But I need to get this done by February 2nd. So this weekend, my plan is to sew those. And then the next one that I have to do is Beltane, which is for May 1st. And these are all available on her blog. They're free. So if you're interested in them. And the Stitchers Coven was doing a sal of these, so I think the hashtag is like TSC Sabbat sal, if I'm not mistaken. So part of what kind of spurred me on with this was, one, finding these that needed to be FFO'd in my closet, and then two, then I started thinking about, this is May, Beltane, and in my brain, of course, it made me think about Callan May in A Court of Thorns and Roses, which is the same thing. So I was like, I totally need to stitch this and make it Rhysand and Feyre, right? I totally need to do that. So I may be making some little color changes, but I'm really excited to stitch this now. So, because it all has to tie in with my books, right? So I'm gonna kit this one up, and at some point I will probably pull this one out and work on it, and that'll give me a little break from my big sampler stitching too. And then of course, hopefully I will finish these other things. So, let's talk books, shall we? Because I have been a book reading fiend. I think I told you last time that I think I read 9 books last year, and 7 of them I read in November and December. So at the end of the year, I read A Court of Thorns and Roses, which was a reread for me, but I am buying the hardbacks for myself because I want the old covers before they change them to the new covers. I'm sorry, I have a tickle in my throat. So I finished A Court of Thorns and Roses, and then on January 1st, I started the next book, which is A Court of Mist and Fury. I mean, look at these covers. They're just beautiful, aren't they? They're just beautiful. So pretty. So I started this on January 1st and then zipped right through it. And then I have read a multitude of other things. I think I read 8 books so far this year. Which is cutting into my stitching time a little bit, but I'm not mad about it. So I ordered the next book, which I was waiting for it to arrive, so I read some other stuff. And then I decided a billion years ago, I started rereading an Agatha Christie book, Murder on the Orient Express, like when the movie came out, or right around that time. And I think I read like a fourth of it and then sort of abandoned it, because I think I abandoned several books around the same time period. So I thought I should get that back out, restart it, and get it done. So I picked this up the other day. So I have a whole set of these Agatha Christie books that are, these compilations. Is that the right word? So there's like 5 books in this one book, and I have 4 or 5 of these, I think. This book is not in the greatest shape because it was one of those that was in my storage unit for like 15 years, but it is still readable. So I started reading Murder on the Orient Express, and I would also like to read Death on the Nile, which is also in this this book. So I start reading Murder on the Orient Express, and I'm reading along, and they're talking about Poirot, that he's getting on the train and he will arrive in Istanbul the next night. And I'm like, I didn't really think about it. I was like, okay, whatever, it's just some city on this route. But then I get further down the page and they refer to Constantinople, and I was like, wait a minute. And Eric and I had just finished watching this show on the History Channel about the rise of the Ottoman Empire, which was fantastic. But I was like, wait just a minute. So I go and look, and I've never heard the term Stamboul, Stamboul. So I go and I look it up, and sure enough, it is another name for Istanbul, Constantinople, Byzantium, and it was used, during a certain time period. I did find it interesting that they referred to it as Istanbul and Constantinople, like within basically the same scene. I don't know what the significance of that is. I don't probably know enough of the history to know that. But then, this guy, this lieutenant, keeps telling him, because he's trying to make this awkward conversation as he's seeing him off at the train. And he's like, you should go and see Saint Sophie. I've heard it's beautiful. I've never been, but you should go see that. And he tells him that twice. And I didn't really think anything about it until I start to make the connection about Constantinople and Istanbul and Istanbul. And then I'm like, wait a minute, he's talking about Hagia Sophia. So then it all starts to click in my head. And I was telling this story to two of my friends last night, Kristen, Blue Bonnets and Whiskey, and Rachel, Stitch and Be Well. And Rachel was like, and all of a sudden, then like the story just seemed more real to you at that point. And I was like, that's perfect. That is a perfect way to describe that, because it did. It felt like now I have this connection to it, because, you know, being with an art history background and everything, I'm like, Hagia Sophia, okay, got it. And I know where we are and I know what we're doing. Okay. So it was just, I thought it was very interesting that clearly I am paying more attention as I'm reading it this time, because I had never made any of those connections before. So I am enjoying it so far. I'm barely into it, but I am enjoying it. And my plan is to actually finish it this time, which may be hard because yesterday this came in the mail. So this is the next book, and I cannot wait to reread this because I have loved rereading this series. I'm so excited about it, and I love this cover. Unfortunately, you know, when you're purchasing a used book, the version of good condition is variable. And I do have to say that I'm a little disappointed the cover is not in as good a condition as I would like. I mean, you can see kind of here, and it sort of looks like, I don't know what happened to it, but I don't know if it got wet or what, but yeah. And look at this. So I can't wait to read this one, but I need to read Orient Express first. So that's my plan. We'll see how it happens. But I'm very much enjoying reading. Like I said, my stitching is suffering a little bit, but I'm okay with it because I'm really enjoying it. But I do have to say that getting back into reading feels kind of like coming back to myself and who I am a little bit. But then there's also, one of the things that I've been also noticing is that some of the books that I have been reading have been bringing up some stuff for me. And I think part of what set off my anxiety over the weekend was not just worrying about etc., but one of the books that I was reading reminded me of what I would not have categorized as trauma previously, but now looking back on it and looking at my reaction to it, I think brought up some trauma that I didn't actually realize was trauma. So there's been a little bit of stuff coming up that I've been having to kind of sort through. But that also goes back to being open to that, and instead of, you know, shoving cookies in my face, I'm trying to just deal with what it brings up, which is not always a whole lot of fun, but it needs to be done, right? So I'm so happy I'm reading again. I just can't even tell you. So anyway, I think that's all that I have to share today. I know that a whole lot of that was not stitching talk. But if you're not new here, you should not be surprised because I'm just going to talk about whatever I want to talk about because hashtag I do what I want. So, yeah, so that's all that I've got. I'm going to read Murder on the Orient Express. I'm going to try to do my finishing on my 2 Sabbat pieces so that they are ready for the holidays. And I'm going to continue to work on Sarah and work on Black and Sky for Dark 13 stitching. So I think that's a plan. Hopefully I can edit this. Hopefully I will be back before another month goes by, and hopefully you enjoyed this video. So that's it for me. Happy New Year. Happy almost February. And happy stitching and happy reading. Thanks, guys. Bye.